She helped with some of the admin and drafting. My brother's voice traveled clean and easy across the ballroom while 200 people applauded. I sat at my table with a glass of water in my hand and my name badge face down on the cloth, thinking, 8 months. 8 months of structural load calculations, heritage impact assessments, and environmental compliance reports, and he just called it admin and drafting. My parents were in the front row, beaming up at him like they always had. I was in the fourth row, invisible as always. But in the third row, a man in a gray blazer had stopped applauding. He was looking at his phone. What he was reading, and the call he made from the parking garage 40 minutes later, would set something in motion that I could not have engineered if I had tried. Before the week was out, my brother's carefully constructed career would begin to collapse. And this time, I was not going to hold any of it up. My name is Layla. I am 32 years old, and I have been a licensed architect in British Columbia for 6 years. I love what I do with a specificity that probably bores people at dinner parties. The moment when a structural system clicks into place on paper, when you have solved for wind load and seismic zone and heritage setback all at once and it holds. I grew up in Vancouver, in a family that owned a small architectural design firm my father built over 30 years. I watched him draft by hand at the kitchen table, and I knew by the time I was 12 that I wanted to do what he did. My brother is 5 years older than me. He is tall and confident and reads a room the way I read a blueprint. Effortlessly, instinctively. He went to the Sauder School of Business at UBC and came back knowing things I did not. How to talk to clients, how to close a deal, how to walk into a meeting and make people feel that he was exactly what they needed. When my father's heart started struggling during my first year of graduate school, it was my brother who stepped in to manage the firm. He was good at that part. I was 23 and still completing my articling hours. I did not argue. By the time I got my AIBC stamp, my professional seal, the thing you put on drawings to say I am licensed, I am responsible, this is my work. My brother was officially CEO of the firm, and I was listed as senior designer. The distinction mattered more than it sounded. In architecture, the person whose stamp is on the drawings is professionally responsible for them. They carry liability. They answer to the institute. But in our firm, by the time I understood that structure clearly, the culture had already been set. My brother spoke for the firm, and I produced for it. The first time he took something from me, I told myself I was being sensitive. I had designed a residential renovation in North Vancouver, a mid-century bungalow. The clients had been particular about the heritage detailing, and it had won a local design commendation. My brother presented the award to our father as our joint achievement, positioned himself in the photographs, and gave the speech. My father clapped him on the shoulder. I was 25. I told myself, it is his firm too. He managed the client. It is fine. I got quiet after that. Not because I wanted to, but because quiet felt safer. I put my head down and worked, and I got very good at what I did. I told myself the quality of the work would eventually speak for itself. The East Vancouver Community Centre project was supposed to be proof of that. The City of Vancouver had put out a request for proposals for a new multi-use recreation facility in the Grandview Woodland neighborhood, a community that had been waiting on upgraded public space for years. The contract scope was significant. $2.3 million in design fees, a 4-year build, a building that would serve thousands of people for decades. It was the kind of project that could define a small firm's entire decade. My brother brought in the RFP and said, "This is ours if we want it. You do the technical. I will handle the front end." I spent 8 months on that proposal. I want to be precise about what those 8 months looked like, because it matters. I drove out to Grandview Woodland on a cold Tuesday morning in February to walk the site in the rain. I met with the neighborhood association 3 separate times. I drafted and redrafted the massing model to address the view corridors of the surrounding buildings. I wrote the heritage context report myself. I coordinated the structural and mechanical work with our engineers. I did the energy modeling to meet BC Energy Step Code requirements. I built the entire cost estimate framework from scratch. And I put my AIBC stamp on the submission documents, my name and my license number on the cover page, because that was what the city required. A licensed architect of record. My brother came to 2 client meetings and 1 site visit. He gave a good presentation each time. He was charming and credible, and the clients responded to him. I am not dismissing that. But when the proposal document was 348 pages, and 2 of those pages were his executive summary, the arithmetic on contribution was not complicated. We won the contract in September. The city sent the letter of award to the firm, care of me, my name, my professional designation, my stamp number. My brother forwarded it to our parents with 1 line, "We got it." I told myself, this is the one. My name is on the contract documents. This time it is on record. I was wrong about how much that would matter, at least in the short term. The Vancouver Chamber of Commerce Gala was held on a Thursday evening in November at the Fairmont Hotel, Vancouver. The firm had been nominated for a Regional Business Excellence Award in the mid-size professional services category. My brother had arranged a table of 10. Our parents, his wife, a few staff members, and me. He had been talking about this event for weeks. He had his suit dry cleaned twice. I wore a navy dress I bought on my lunch break in a hurry. I sat in the 4th row because my brother had allocated the nominees' table at the front to himself, our parents, and his wife. I did not say anything about that. When they called the firm's name, my brother walked to the stage with the ease of someone who had rehearsed, not looking like he had rehearsed. He thanked the chamber. He thanked the city. He thanked the clients. He spoke about community impact and design excellence and the firm's 30-year legacy. He spoke for 4 minutes and 20 seconds. I know because I was watching the clock on the pillar to my left. And in those 4 minutes and 20 seconds, he said my name once, in a list that also included the receptionist and the 2 junior drafters. I also want to thank our incredible team, he said warmly, especially my staff, including my little sister, who helped out with some of the admin and drafting. Admin and drafting. I did not make a sound. I did not cry. I did not leave the table. I just sat with it, the full weight of it. 8 months, 348 pages, my stamp, my name, my license number, and what the room heard was, she helped out with some of the paperwork. My parents did not look at me. They were watching my brother hold the award in both hands, lifting it just slightly, grinning. My mother had tears in her eyes. In the 3rd row, a man in a gray blazer had stopped applauding. He was looking at his phone with his brow pulled together. His name was Scott, though I did not know that yet. He was the senior project director at the City of Vancouver's Capital Projects office. He had come to the gala as a guest of the chamber, seated at a different table. He had listened to my brother's speech, and he had just pulled up the East Vancouver Community Center contract file on his phone, because something in that speech had made something not add up. On the cover page of the proposal, lead architect of record, my name, my AIBC registration, my stamp number. On the stage, a man who had just described that architect as someone who helped with admin. Scott left the gala early. I noticed him walk out but did not know who he was. After the ceremony, a journalist from business in Vancouver caught my brother near the bar for a brief interview. I stood close enough to hear. My brother spoke about the community center as a reflection of my vision for community-integrated design and the design philosophy I have developed throughout my career. I walked away before he could seize my face. My parents found me near the coat check. My mother put her hand on my arm and said, "Why do you always look so flat at these things? This is a wonderful night for your brother. Try to be happy for him." I said I was tired. I drove home alone on the Granville Bridge with the radio off. I did not sleep well. I lay in my apartment in Mount Pleasant and thought about what it would mean to say something. To walk into the office Monday morning and say, "That was not yours. That was mine." I thought about it the way you think about stepping into cold water. You know you are going to feel it. You are not sure you can make your body do it. I was still deciding when my phone rang 2 days later. It was Scott. He introduced himself. Senior Project Director, City of Vancouver Capital Projects, and said he was calling because he had a discrepancy in the community center file he needed to clarify. He had called the main office first, he said, and spoken to the principal, but the conversation had raised more questions than it answered. He had then looked up the AIBC public registry, found my stamp number on the proposal documents, and tracked down my direct number. I want to be straightforward with you, he said. Approximately 2 months after the contract award, an amendment was submitted to our contracts office authorizing a project management subcontracting fee to a numbered company. 18% of total contract value. He paused. That works out to roughly $414,000 Canadian. The amendment was submitted on firm letterhead, but the numbered company is not registered to the firm. It is registered to a private individual. I sat down slowly. I said, I was not aware of that amendment. The reason I am calling you specifically, Scott said, is that the original proposal identified you as the architect of record. Your professional stamp is on the submission. In the city's contracting process, that designation carries specific professional obligations. If a billing arrangement has been established in connection with this contract that you were not party to, that is something we need to understand clearly. My brother had filed an amendment to redirect $414,000 of city contract money to a numbered company registered solely in his name. A company my parents knew nothing about. A company I had never heard of, and he had done it using a contract that existed because of my professional credentials. I asked Scott if we could meet in person. We sat the next morning at a cafe on Main Street. I brought my laptop and an external hard drive. I showed him my project folders, every version, every revision, every email, every file. The timestamps did not lie. Site analysis in February, structural coordination in April, the Heritage Report in June, the final submission package in August. I showed him the email thread where my brother had forwarded me the RFP with the note, "You do the technical. I will handle the front end." I showed him the email where I had sent my brother the completed 348-page proposal for review 24 hours before it was due, and his reply, a thumbs-up emoji. Scott was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I am going to need a formal written statement from you. And I need you to understand that once this enters our compliance process, it will likely be referred to the RCMP Commercial Crime Unit. I told him I understood. I wrote the statement at my kitchen table in 2.5 hours that afternoon. I cited dates and document references without editorializing. I attached the relevant files and sent everything to Scott before 4 o'clock. The city froze the contract by the following morning. My brother found out within the hour. By noon, he was calling my cell phone every 15 minutes. I let it ring until he sent a text. I know it was you. Call me. We can fix this. I did not respond. He came to my apartment building that evening. I met him in the lobby but did not bring him upstairs. We stood in the hallway and he spoke for 10 minutes straight. The amendment was a legitimate management fee structure. Plenty of firms structured projects this way. He was going to explain everything to the city, and all he needed from me was a confirmation that I had been working under his direction as the firm's principal. He said it was not a big deal. He said I was making it into something it was not. I asked him how he had planned to explain the numbered company to our parents. He went quiet. I said, You used my license to win that contract. My name and my stamp are the reason the city trusted the submission. And then you filed an amendment to redirect nearly $500,000 to a company that only you own, without telling our parents, without telling me, without telling anyone. I looked at him steadily. That is not a fee structure. That is fraud. He told me I was being dramatic. I said goodnight and went upstairs. My parents called the next morning. My mother was crying before I finished saying hello. Word had filtered back through the firm, through my brother, most likely, that I was the source of the complaint. My father was on the extension, silent and breathing. My mother said I had betrayed the family. She said whatever had happened with the amendment was a private business matter and should have been brought to her and my father first, not to the city. She said I had humiliated my brother in front of the entire professional community. She said I had taken 30 years of my father's work and thrown it away. I listened. I waited for her to stop. Then I said, he filed a fraudulent amendment using my professional credentials without my knowledge. If the city had pursued that and attached misconduct to my stamp, I could have lost my AIBC registration. That is not a private family matter. That is my career. My mother said, you always have to make everything about yourself. I told them I loved them both, and I hung up. The investigation took 3 months. The city's contract compliance office worked alongside the RCMP's commercial crime unit. An audit of the numbered company, 0937412 BC Limited, registered to my brother in August, 1 month before the contract award, confirmed that he had already drawn $312,000 in processed payments through the city's accounts payable system before the freeze was issued. The Canada Revenue Agency was brought in because the company had no corresponding expense documentation and had not filed a proper GST return on the payments received. The civil liability was significant. The city issued a formal notice of breach and demand for full repayment of the $312,000. My brother's personal assets, including a rental property in Burnaby he held with a private mortgage, became part of the recovery proceedings. The family firm was placed under a compliance review and lost its standing as an approved vendor with the city for 2 years. My parents' retirement savings were partially tied to the firm's valuation. That took a hit. My brother told them it was my fault. For a while, they seemed to need to believe him. My mother stopped calling. My father sent one email, 7 lines, saying he was disappointed in how I had handled things, and that family loyalty should have come first. I read it twice, and then sat with it for a long time. I thought about what it costs, over a lifetime, to keep absorbing that logic. Family loyalty. Stay quiet. Don't make it harder. Don't make it about yourself. I had heard that instruction so many times it had started to feel like my name. I submitted my transfer to independent sole practitioner status with the AIBC in January. I rented a shared workspace in a building on Clark Drive. 12 other small creative practices in the same building, a good printer, a peace lily someone had left on the windowsill. I reached out to 2 clients I had worked with closely over the years. People who knew me as the person who actually showed up to the site and answered their technical questions. They came with me. A third client called out of the blue. Someone from a project 4 years earlier who had heard through the professional community that I had gone independent. By March, I had 3 active files. By June, I had 5. The East Vancouver Community Centre was re-awarded in April, after the compliance review cleared my name and confirmed me as the legitimate architect of record. The city issued a revised contract. It was addressed to my new practice, my name, my stamp, nothing else. Construction started in the fall. The hoarding went up around the site, that temporary wooden perimeter that goes up before excavation begins, printed with renderings of the finished building. I had driven past that corner 100 times during the design process. I knew the light at that intersection at every hour of the day. I knew exactly how the building would sit in relationship to the street. The morning the hoarding went up, I drove past slowly. On the panel facing the sidewalk, below the rendering, it read, Architect of Record, and then my name, and then my practice name in black text on a white panel in the October light. I pulled over. I sat there for a minute. Just that. There are people who move through the world, taking up space with a confidence that makes others feel, for years at a time, like the room was not really built to hold them too. I spent a long time making myself smaller, giving things away because it seemed easier, because I told myself the work was what mattered and not the recognition. I told myself I was being the bigger person. Looking back now, I think what I was actually doing was disappearing a little more with every project. I am not disappearing anymore. The building is going to stand in that neighborhood for 50 years. It will be used by people who will never know my name, and that is perfectly fine, because the work is what I set out to do. But the people who need to know, the city, the institute, the professional record, they know. And now I know too, in a way I did not know before, that my name and my work are the same thing, and neither of them belongs to anyone else. I am still working out what comes next with my parents. That is slow and complicated, and I do not have a clean ending to offer you on that part. What I can tell you is that I am not waiting for their version of events to align with mine before I keep moving forward. I am already moving. Follow my story until the end, and tell me in the comments what city you are watching from. I want to know how far this has reached.